What will tonight's ceremony say about Britain, and what should it? Joining me now is the Director of Film at the British Council, Briony Hanson, who has worked with Danny Boyle, and the former Artistic Director of the Institute of Contemporary Arts, Ekow Eshun. When you think about the impact these ceremonies have in previous Olympics, not least of which, you know, in this country, it's a big night, isn't it?
It's a huge 1 billion people watching kind of night. It's a huge night also for Britain, and it's a huge night for Britain to try and sell a version of itself. Like, if you think back to 2005 when London won the Olympics, the whole story then was about this modern, multicultural, cosmopolitan city. Here you have to do even more than that. You have to sell this idea of London being a place that is about the world, but is also about Britain in its entire history, and then project on top of that an idea of what Britain can be for now and into the future as well. So there's quite a lot going on.
And Danny Boyle's been very clever, hasn't he, in a way, because he's leaked this image of England's green fields and suggested that it was all going to be very traditional, oldie-worldy England, when it's clearly not.
No, clearly not. I mean, in a million years, I'll just shout above the helicopters, in a million years, he's never going to do something traditional, twee, you know, nice, cute Britain.
But see, I think there's a really fascinating tension here, because you know, you have to play to the crowd for obvious reasons because it's such a huge moment. But then at the same time, this being Britain, what doesn't wash is if you do something triumphalist and monumental and jingoistic.
It has to have our quirks, doesn't it, as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he said specifically he wants it to be
peculiar,
to show how.
I think
he said he wanted to show how contrary we were, and then we've got a sense of humour. We can laugh at ourselves. And yes, we've got some flag waving to do. This is an amazing opportunity to show. I mean, as you said, it's a kind of 1 billion people advert for us and for what we can do and what we could be.
How important do you think it is beyond this amazing stadium here and the TV audience? I mean, do the people of Britain really care that much? You know, will they feel differently tomorrow if this is pulled off well?
Look, you know, you're not going to change, declining economic fortunes of Britain with an opening ceremony. But what you are going to do is create an idea of Britain that can stick in people's minds, that can stick in the minds of children. So, look, I think pretty much
there's a real sense down there. You see that people wanted this to be a big success, to project Britain as, you know, a big player, someone who can pull it off well. You know.
But that's the moment. We do want that. But I think, reality is it can't quite do that. But it can fix an image in our heads, and that's the exciting thing. So I remember back to whichever LA games it was, '84, with the man in the jetpack flying over the stadium. Everyone remembers specific iconic moments, and the success of this, I think, will come if there is even just one moment that can remain fixed as an icon of who and what Britain is right now.
The other thing is that he's got to do this on a lot less money than on a lot of the other games. Certainly the last ones in Beijing, which were all about pyrotechnic and people sort of moving in absolute, rhythm. But this, he's done it on a quarter of the budget, and so he's got to be a bit more inventive. He can't just do big pyrotechnics.
I think that the thing that I'm quite excited about is that he's got people like Underworld doing the music. Yeah. There are moments of pop culture in there, and what I'm really interested in is how you transmit a story of where Britain has been really in the last sort of generation, since the 60s onwards. Because what is fascinating to me is that Britain's got this huge traditional past and so on, but it's also got this pop culture past, it's also got modernist past, it's also got this embrace of punk music and pop and great, Brit art and all of these things. And it'll be really interesting to see how some of those merge in there. Obviously with Danny Boyle and his background doing train spotting, there's a big hope. Yeah. I think you can do something that feels quite now.
From what we know already, Underworld, Paul McCartney, Tiger Fees, there's clearly going to be a lot that people get, because normally if you think about these sorts of big ceremonies or opening ceremonies, it's just this big spectacle that you don't know any of the tunes, it's all been specially composed. Actually, there's going to be a lot for people to latch onto.
Well, that's why I think Danny Boyle is such a brilliant choice, because he's the sort of people's director. I mean, he can make huge, big blockbusters that touch and move millions of people, but he can also tell quite small, intimate stories.
Having worked with him, and what have you made of the stories of Toys Out of Pram over, I don't want commentary over my opening ceremony, and I want the cameras where I want them. Does that sound like the man you've worked with?
No, I feel that's absolute rubbish. I mean, Danny Boyle for me has engaged with filmmakers at the absolute emerging lowest level. He's come in and done training sessions for us. I mean, that is not the Danny Boyle we know. He's really incredibly generous, warm, you know, special man. And, you know, the other interesting thing about this is, of course, he's a real East End boy. You know, he lives, I mean, he wasn't born and bred here, but this is where he lives.
And again, a massive contrast again with China, if you think about who's taking part. These are volunteers, these are people who auditioned. They're not people who've been told you will do this for the last...
Look, you know, the real success of this will come if it somehow captures creative London, if it somehow captures community London, if it somehow captures actually the city that we've chosen to live in. You know, the city where 300 different languages are spoken, where kind of the whole world can feel at home. That's the real promise and excitement of this thing, that suddenly you have for once an Olympics that you recognise.
Ekow Eshun, Briony Hanson, thank you both very much indeed for joining us.